Continuing into the nose, I'm going to leave local view by hitting the / key, and our mouth bag is going to present an immediate visual problem. This is because we turned on the in-front display in our viewport display options, and this is really confusing to work with because our mouth bag is clearly inside the sculpture, but it's being displayed on the outside. And so it's covering the cheek if we wanted to retopologize. If we wanted to do the nose, we can't see any visual shading cues to place our topology. And unfortunately, with Blender's stock settings, we cannot solve this 100%. It can help a little bit if we, in our shader or viewport shading settings, enable backface culling. That will at least hide the face visualization, even though we still see vertex and edges. We can also hide this section of the mesh. If I select an edge loop, Control+, grow the selection to about here, I can hit H to hide that. However, throughout this process, we're going to be hiding and unhiding at will. And I don't want to always worry about re-hiding the mouth bag. So I'm going to opt to simply hit P to separate this by selection into its own object. And the outliner, we should probably rename these. I'm going to call our main mesh retopo and our mouth bag retopo _ mouth bag. And now I can hide this in the viewport and it won't bother us. At the end of the overall process, I can simply stitch it back in. But I do hope in the near future that Blender adds a solution to retopology visualization. After all, several third-party tools handle this pretty well. But for now, this is what we are dealing with. And it's really just a minor inconvenience. We'll be able to get along just fine. I'm going to turn off subdivision surface. And continuing into the nose, let's talk conceptually. The mouth, if we just compare to where we came from, that was based on concentric edge loops, which are very important for proper deformation of the mouth. And so deformation is arguably priority number 1 when retopologizing that area, and accomplishing the form is secondary. However, the nose is a bit more complex and weird, and it doesn't deform very much. The nostrils might flare. In a really high-res rig, a nose crinkle would produce wrinkles, but besides that, it's just sort of there. And so in this case, priority number 1 is to accomplish the form, and deformation, is a distant second priority. And so I'm going to start by extruding 4 verts, Control right-clicking in the alar crease. Okay, so 4 verts pretty evenly spaced is going to kick off our mesh density pretty well. From there, I'm going to create an inset of faces that match the topology all the way around. And I just noticed that snapping is disabled. You kind of want that on. It's important when it comes to retopology. So let's select those, G and click to snap it to the surface. There we go. And we can fill these faces. Whoops, move my mouse cursor so it fills in the proper direction. And then I can also fill across this way and connect to these 2 verts, G and snap. By the way, you can Control R to add as many edge loops as you want, but since this is a single edge, it basically serves to subdivide an edge. And so I use that a lot. And at this point, we have the nostril blocked out, and we can continue encircling the nostril hole, connecting into the columella and philtrum. And I am going to loop around this and connect up here. And then these verts can be brought down, E to extrude. And you'll notice that I created a spiral instead of an edge loop. Now this is typically something you want to avoid. But for this specific shape, number 1, since it doesn't deform, and number 2, since the actual anatomy does spiral, thanks to that southern lobe of the major alar cartilage, this little scoop shape is a spiral. And so I am going to include that in the topology. But again, this is not a recommendation. You don't want to do this in the mouth. You don't want to do it in the eye or in the body, like shoulders, elbows. You only would want to do this in a special circumstance like this one. And even still, someone might opt not to do that. But since it's not a terribly consequential piece of the face, especially in terms of deformation, it should be fine, and mainly comes down to preference here. Okay, so now we've got some geometry to continue to the tip of the nose. Again, just kind of keeping our geometry size pretty consistent, right? We don't want our faces to be really big on the nose tip, but then be really small in the nostril. Just trying to focus on consistency and cleanliness of the topology. All right, so this is an example where I think I went a little bit too broad. So let's change direction a little bit. Let's remove this edge. And we can do this instead. And that adds one more edge with which we can go up the nose. Here we can circle around, connect to this edge, circling the nostril. And then let's see, how about we cut across here? There we go. That should give us enough to connect into. Actually, no, I think I'm getting a little bit too broad with my faces again. Here we go. That's going to give me plenty of geometry to continue northward. However, I think I need another edge loop running around the cheek because I feel like this edge could come down, kind of nuzzle up next to the nasolabial fold a little bit better. So let's slide that edge and then maybe move this one out a little bit more and make room for a new edge to be cut. Control R. And I'm probably not going to be able to snap the whole thing at once. It's going to be too weird down here. All right, try and keep everything nice and clean. I think that's a little bit better in terms of mesh density. And it connects up to the nose nicely, right? So when we keep our geometry a little more simple, it's easier to make changes like that. And also on the note of being a spiral, if this row of faces was a spiral instead of an edged loop, that would create problems when cutting new edge loops. So that's another reason why generally you want to avoid spirals. Very special case there for the nostril. And we're getting to the ocular region where we're going to have to change our mesh topology direction. Okay, and we've talked about surface direction changes, but we've not had to deal with directional changes in terms of topology. The mouth was much more simplified and could be accomplished with concentric edge loops, but the nose is a pretty funky shape. And so we have a lot of directional changes, and they're primarily signified by this 5-point star. Okay, so from this vertex, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verts coming off of it. And the more edges you have coming out from a single vertex, the more stress it puts on that vertex. We've got one here, here, let's see, I think another one here, but we have 0 around the mouth. And that's okay because again, this is not going to deform. The nose does not change its shape a lot. So it's okay to put 5-star junctions over here. You don't want to have them in the middle of these concentric edge loops of the mouth or of the eyes. And so it's something to be aware of. No matter what, you're going to have these junctions. When you're trying to accomplish deformation and mesh shape, you're going to be changing topological directions. You're going to be adding these stars, but putting them in the least consequential places is what you want to do. So filling up into the eye, we're going to start encircling the eye the same way we did the nostril, the same way we did the lips. So as we approach these mile markers, we're going to start encircling them. And now to connect up to the nose, let's see, we need to create a 5-star junction in here somewhere. So I think I might have to do that actually here, where we come up this way. I need another vert in the center. I think that should suffice. It definitely leaves us plenty of geometry to accomplish the bridge of the nose. Although, if I'm honest, it might be a little bit too much, right? So let's see, we've got 5 total vertices to accomplish a simple shape. Yeah, I think that's just too much. So let's remove these, kind of spread out these edges. I just don't need an overabundance of edges going up into the glabella area. Sometimes you see a lot of people like terminate a ton of edge loops right there, and it always has kind of bothered me. So let's see, what else can I do? I could just attach over here. That seems like a bit of a stretch, but no, I think that's actually going to work out. If we just relax some of these other vert positions. Yeah, I think this is going to work out. So now I only have 3 verts going up. There we go. That's going to work out better. There's definitely an element of kind of puzzle solving whenever it comes to topology. That can be equally frustrating or actually kind of fun and rewarding. Select everything, shift in to consolidate those flipped normals. Just make sure all of these are stuck to the surface by hitting G and then left clicking. Yeah, I think this is going to work out pretty well. And all right, so that's essentially the completed exterior of the nose. I think this should work out pretty well. But now we can move to the interior and finish up the nostril. Let's just shade smooth, tab into edit mode. And then, let's see, I'm going to extrude inward and continue an edge loop. But right here, we're going to have to split out. Okay, so we're starting from an area with very little surface shape right here, but then we split into this scooped shape. So I need more geometry. And to accomplish this, whoops, I'm going to split it into a diamond junction. Okay, that is a common mesh topology junction where you can take one vert and split it into 3, or one edge and split it into 3. This will give me enough geometry to continue into this southern lobe of the major alar cartilage. All right, so we can accomplish the crest and then swoop down on the other side like this. All right, that is going to work out really well. It's a little bit jagged in terms of the mesh edge flow down here, so I'm going to smooth that out. And also, this is where it gets a little bit funky to visualize. So because we've already retopologized the exterior of the nose, I'm going to grow my selection a little bit and then Shift H, all right, to hide everything else. Just trying to maintain the shaded view of our sculpture as I retopologize. Trying to ignore those edges on the other side. And once we get into the nostril, really it's anything goes, frankly. I don't care about triangles or n-gons. There are very little rules inside the nostril. We just need it to accomplish the shape. So I actually think I probably prematurely ended that loop. And in most cases like this, I might just go vertex by vertex. Kind of like improvisational retopology. Whereas I don't like to do that on the exterior because I don't think it generates as clean or as a quadded topology. I might just go ahead and connect all the way over here so that we maintain quads. And yeah, it's a big stretched face, but that's okay. I don't mind that. All right, now from here, I'm going to continue the 3 edges and then terminate them. Let's terminate them right here. All right, so that's another diamond junction. We're keeping it all quads. We have accomplished the shape. Jump back to object mode. We can add Control 2, a subsurf modifier. And yeah, that shape has been handled very well. All right, so disable subsurf. And now we should have a concentric edge loop for the most part that I can simply E to extrude, scale down, maybe use the loop tool's space function, and then E to extrude, M to merge at center. Here we go. And how many verts are here? There's probably going to be a triangle. Actually, no. There's not a triangle. So we actually kept it all quads, but it's just not the kind of topology you want to take home to mom. All right, let's fix this edge in the center. And are we done with the nose? Let's hide, go into local view. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Now you might be thinking, aren't we losing a lot of details from the sculpture to the subsurfed version of our retopology? Yes, we definitely are. If we move this off to the side and leave local view, you can see that, you know, the sharp vermilion borders on the lips, the edges of the philtrum, the tight alar crease, these are all being smoothed over. But do not fear, we are going to go over how to up-res the base mesh and capture these details in the multi-resolution modifier. So that is definitely going to come, do not fear. But for now, I think we're done with the nose. We're ready to move into the eye.